What if everything you thought you knew about life, death, and what lies beyond was put to the test in a single moment? Imagine going about your day, doing something as ordinary as walking the park, when suddenly your world takes an unexpected turn. What you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a message that could change how you see existence itself. A few months ago, a man named Daniel experienced something so profound that he still struggles to find the words to describe it. His life was like many others: a stable job, a family he loved, and the little moments that filled his days. But that afternoon, as he strolled to the park, something happened that brought him to the edge of death and beyond. Out of nowhere, a sharp pain in his chest knocked him to the ground. He couldn't move, and the people around him panicked. Paramedics arrived quickly, but his heart had already stopped. As they fought to revive him, Daniel experienced something he would never forget: a journey to the other side. Everything went silent. The pain vanished, and suddenly he was floating above his own body. He could see the doctors working frantically, but he felt no fear. Instead, an indescribable peace enveloped him. It was as if someone had lifted the weight of the world off his shoulders. And then it appeared, a light, but not just any light. It was warm, bright, and full of love. That light called to him, as if inviting him to come closer. And the closer he got, the more he could feel a powerful presence. It was Jesus. His face radiated a peace Daniel couldn't explain, and his voice resonated deep within his soul. Do not be afraid. There's something I want to show you. And so, the real journey began. Jesus took Daniel by the hand and led him to a place beyond imagination. It was a heaven filled with colors that don't exist on earth, with rivers of crystal clear water and mountains that seemed to touch everything. Every detail of that place was alive with harmony. There was no pain, no sadness, only a perfection that left him speechless. Jesus guided him to a city made of light. The streets were paved with gold, and the gates were giant pearls. He explained that this was the eternal home God had prepared for those who love him. Every corner of that place was filled with meaning, from the trees that bore eternal fruit to the rivers that flowed with life. But what struck Daniel the most was what Jesus showed him next. He took him to a hall filled with hundreds of books. When Jesus opened one, Daniel realized it contained every moment of his life: his joys, his struggles, his acts of love. Jesus explained that every decision he had made, every act of kindness, had left an eternal mark. Nothing you do out of love is in vain, Jesus told him. Every prayer, every tear, every smile you gave to someone in need is recorded here. Then, Jesus took him to a place where he saw loved ones who had passed away before him. They were full of life and happiness, and they embraced it with a love he had never felt before. They told him that one day he would be with them, but for now, he still had a purpose to fulfill on earth. Before sending him back, Jesus led Daniel to a balcony where he could see earth. He saw people struggling, suffering, and turning away from God. But he also saw a small light shining in the darkness. People who loved, forgave, and helped others. Jesus explained that those lights were powerful, and every act of love helped push back the darkness. Your mission is to be one of those lights. Jesus said, "Share what you've seen. Help others find hope." With those words, Daniel felt himself being pulled back into his body. The doctors were celebrating his miraculous recovery, but he knew he had returned for a reason. His life would never be the same. Now, he had a message to share, a light to bring into the world. When Daniel opened his eyes, he was in a hospital room. Doctors and nurses surrounded him, amazed by his recovery. "It's a miracle," they said. But Daniel knew it wasn't just a medical miracle. It was something far deeper. He had been on the brink of death, but he had returned with a renewed purpose. In the days that followed, Daniel began sharing his experience with his family and closest friends. At first, many couldn't believe it, but the peace and conviction in his words were so strong that they couldn't ignore them. Every time he spoke, it felt as if a piece of the light he had experienced in heaven was being passed on to those who listened. But it was during a special moment, when he met a young boy who had lost his father, that Daniel truly understood his mission. The boy, filled with sadness and emptiness, approached him, seeking comfort. As Daniel looked into his eyes, he remembered the peace and love he felt on the other side, and he knew he had to share that same message. Death isn't the end. It's just a step, a transition to something greater, more beautiful, more eternal. Your father is in a place full of light, where there's no pain or suffering. He's okay, happier than ever, Daniel said softly but firmly. The boy looked at him with uncertainty, but when Daniel smiled, something inside him began to heal. From that moment on, Daniel began speaking publicly, sharing his testimony and helping others find comfort in their own losses. The near-death experience he had gone through hadn't just transformed him. It now had the power to transform the lives of others, to give them hope, to remind them that no matter how dark the night, a new dawn always comes. As Daniel shared his story, he noticed something remarkable. People who had been struggling with grief, fear, or doubt began to find peace. They started to see their lives in a new light, realizing that their actions, no matter how small, could have an eternal impact. Daniel's message wasn't just about heaven. It was about living a life of purpose here on earth. One day, Daniel was invited to speak at a community event. The room was packed with people from all walks of life, each carrying their own burdens. As he stood on the stage, he felt a familiar warmth, as if Jesus were right there beside him, guiding his words. He shared his journey, describing the beauty of heaven, the love of Jesus, and the importance of living a life filled with kindness and faith. When he finished, the room was silent. Then one by one, people began to stand, tears streaming down their faces. They thanked him for giving them hope, for reminding them that they were never alone. Daniel knew then that his mission was just beginning, but it wasn't always easy. Some people doubted his story, calling it a figment of his imagination or a trick of the mind. Others accused him of seeking attention. But Daniel didn't let their skepticism shake him. He knew what he had seen, and he knew the truth of his experience was too important to keep to himself. Over time, Daniel's story spread far and wide. He started a blog, wrote a book, and even appeared on television shows to share his message. But no matter how big his platform grew, he never lost sight of his purpose: to be a light in the darkness, just as Jesus had asked him to be. One evening, after a long day of speaking engagements, Daniel sat alone in his living room, reflecting on everything that had happened. He thought about the people he had met, the lives he had touched, and the hope he had helped restore. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for his own life, but for the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of others. As he sat there, he felt that familiar warmth again, as if Jesus were right there with him. He closed his eyes and whispered a prayer of thanks. In that moment, he knew he was exactly where he was meant to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. As the years passed, Daniel realized his purpose was much greater than simply sharing his experience. His mission was to help people remember the love, light, and peace we all carry within, no matter the challenges we face in this world. Because in the end, the only thing that truly matters is the love we give and receive, and the legacy we leave in the hearts of others. With every life he touched, Daniel felt he was fulfilling the promise he had made to Jesus: to be a light for others, guiding them toward peace, toward truth, toward eternity. And as he walked through this world, he was no longer afraid, because he knew death wasn't the end, but return home, a return to the infinite peace and love that never ceased to exist. And with that certainty in his heart, he lived his life with purpose, love, and hope, witnessing everyday miracles, always guided by the peace he had found beyond life, leading all who cross his path toward it. One day, Daniel received a letter from a woman named Sarah. She had been struggling with depression for years, feeling like her life had no meaning. But after hearing Daniel's story, something inside her shifted. She wrote, "Your words gave me hope when I had none. I realize that my life, no matter how broken it feels, has a purpose. Thank you for reminding me that I'm not alone, that there's a love greater than anything I've ever known." Tears filled Daniel's eyes as he read her words. This was why he had returned. This was why he had been given a second chance, to help others find the hope and love he had experienced. But Daniel's journey wasn't just about inspiring others. It was also about living out the lessons he had learned in heaven. He began to see every interaction as an opportunity to show kindness, to spread love, and to be a reflection of the light he had encountered. Whether it was helping a neighbor, volunteering at a shelter, or simply smiling at a stranger, Daniel knew that every act of love mattered. One evening, as he sat on his porch watching the sunset, Daniel thought about the beauty of life. He realized that heaven wasn't just a place we go to after we die. It's a reality we can experience here and now, through love, kindness, and faith. The peace he had felt in heaven wasn't just waiting for him in the afterlife. It was with him every day, guiding him, comforting him, and reminding him of his purpose. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, Daniel whispered a prayer of gratitude. He thanked God for the second chance he had been given, for the opportunity to make a difference, and for the love that had transformed his life. He knew that his journey wasn't over, but he also knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. Years later, Daniel's story continued to inspire millions. His book became a bestseller, his speeches reached people around the world, and his message of hope and love touched countless lives. But for Daniel, the greatest reward wasn't fame or recognition. It was the knowledge that he fulfilled his purpose. He had been a light in the darkness, just as Jesus had asked him to be. And as he looked back on his life, Daniel knew that he had lived it well. He had loved deeply, given generously, and shared the light he had been given. He had no regrets, no fears, only a deep sense of peace and gratitude. If this story touched your heart and made you think about life, death, and what truly matters, I want to invite you to reflect on your own purpose. We all have a path to walk, and what really counts isn't the obstacles, but the love and light we leave in our wake. If you feel inspired, I encourage you to share this message with others, so that together we can remember that we're never alone. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel to keep receiving stories that will help you see the world in a different way, full of hope and strength. And remember, peace and love are always within your reach. You just have to believe. See you in the next video, and may the light always guide you